Hi everyone, welcome to Talk Back. It's March 10th and we're continuing in our series of programs on Senior Resources Agency on Aging. All the things that this agency does in our corner of the world here in southeastern Connecticut to help seniors navigate life, make it easier for them to get services if they need it, and just to give them a helping hand, because we know how many problems there are in our culture now for seniors, not just for seniors, but we're going to concentrate on seniors today. Our program really is on scams, fraud, and financial exploitation. It ranges from issues of Medicare to personal finances, to issues about identity theft, grandparents who get scammed by people impersonating their grandchildren and trying to get things from them. And in our culture today, it's our seniors who trust the people around them the most. Those are the people that oftentimes fail them, cheat them, scam them, and try to take advantage of them. And it's very hard because when you're a senior and you're dependent on these loved ones, whether it's your children, sometimes your lawyers, sometimes your doctors, that is the most horrifying thing when you find out that they fail you. So we have three people from Senior Resources today who are going to help us talk about these issues and educate us all, and give us some important phone numbers to have in our books that we can call on. So let me introduce from Senior Resources. First we have Joyce Goodkin. Hi, Joyce.
Hi there.
Hi. And Joyce is the Consumer Information Specialist,
Yes.
right? Yes. And then we have Jill Vasington. Hi,
Hello.
Jill.
Hello.
Jill is the Senior Medicare Patrol Program Coordinator. So that's SMP, and that stands for Senior Medicare Patrol.
Correct.
You monitor and you help people figure out how not to get scammed through their Medicare accounts.
Exactly.
Right? And we'll
Yep.
talk about that. And then we have Regina Stankaitis.
Very good.
Right, I pronounced it right. And she is an AARP Connecticut Executive Council volunteer. And I want to start with Regina because all of us are experts in our own little corner of education, but Regina actually had a personal experience. And, you know, I think what was so important that we'll see later on in some of our slides is when we get scammed, we sort of blame ourselves, which we really shouldn't, because it happens to all of us. And we have to appreciate that it can happen. And Regina is a perfect example of a person of education who has the knowledge and yet still got scammed. So Regina, I want you to tell us your story. How did it begin?
It began when I needed a knee replacement, and I needed to have somebody stay with me at my house because I have Parkinson's disease. And basically, the surgeon's office recommended this vendor. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought, hey, the surgeon's office recommended it. It's got to be a very good organization.
Now, when you say vendor, someone to help take care of you.
Right, agency. And so the agency sent me a felon. 3 months before she came to me, she was arrested. And she came to me and she actually took pictures of all my financials. She took pictures of a lot of other things. She stole carpets, she stole dishes, she stole all sorts of things because I was under heavy medication. I didn't know that she was doing that kind of a thing.
She came into your home?
Yes.
And how long was she to be in your home? Every day for so many hours?
24 hours a day for 2 weeks.
Wow. And you paid for this through the agency?
Yes, I did.
Did you get any insurance help or Medicare help to help pay for it?
No.
It's all a personal, private thing. And the agency is supposed to vouch for these people, aren't
Correct.
they supposed to insure them or vouch for them?
They're supposed to do a background check on them, but this agency did not do a background check. So that's why I got her over. At that point in time, a lot of people were needing certain, caregivers, and what happened was that this agency just wanted to throw them out there. So a person walks into her door, she says, you could do it, good, and they threw her out to me.
So it was the agency's fault for not
Correct.
vetting these people? Or
Correct.
how did you find out that this person was a felon, as you say, which meant she had a criminal record?
Basically, after this all began, and we started with like finding out she was doing all sorts of things, I did a research. Went on to Google, and I Googled her name, and all these things came up as far as different cases that she was arrested on.
Did she ever spend time in jail?
That's going to be coming up. Coming up in March 27th, actually, the decision is going to be made by the court as to what kind of penalty she's going to have to face.
Was that from what happened to you?
Yes.
So how long ago did it actually happen?
It happened in the end of 2021.
So look at how long it's taken. It's over 4 years now. That's
Right.
the judicial process. But tell me, how did you ferret it out? How did you start to realize, wow, something's wrong here?
I realized when the bank called me up and asked me why I was spending $4,000 on a new, painting in the house when I just bought a new house, and they knew it. So they, alerted me to that, and I kind of looked at it, and I found out more things after that when I went to the bank. And then also what she did was, with my information, she went online and she rented an apartment. She furnished the apartment from Wayfair items and such like that. She actually went and used my name to get heating from Eversource, and I was supposed to have to pay for that myself. It was like over $1,500.
So she was basically using your checking account, your savings account. What did she have access to?
She had access to everything, actually. She took pictures of everything. So I had everything in my files. And so what she did was she took pictures of my 401ks, my pensions, everything else, all my investments that I had, and she was going to go and take them out in my name and keep them.
But so where did it stop? Did she only get access in the end to your bank records, to your bank account?
She got access, well, not actually with that. She did with my debit card. She found my debit card, and she was using that to get monies out of the bank.
But that's from your checking account.
Right, right.
Did she take any credit cards?
Yes, she did. She sold several credit cards.
In the end, how much financial loss did you have in all?
I would say $25,000.
Really? How did you eventually catch her or let her know, or the agency know? How did that all happen when you realized what was going on?
When I realized it, I contacted the police department, and what they did was they sent over a policeman to take his intake for me, an intake session. And basically, the policeman treated me like a little old lady, okay? And so I was not happy with it. And
Were they not believing you? Is that what you're saying?
He was more or less like saying that it was not. They could probably help me with getting my $4,000 back from the bank, but everything else would be on my own shoulders.
Really? Mm-hmm. Now, was this the police locally here? Was it the state police?
No, my local police office.
And what happened? Did you go to the state police?
No, I didn't, because basically what I did was I went to the head of the senior center, and I explained to her what had happened. And I told her, as far as the police officer, how I was treated. She, in turn, contacted the police officer, and he treated her poorly as well. And then what happened was that she contacted her friend, who was the manager of the town, and she also knew the chief of police. And as a result of that conversation she had with them, I was able to get a detective who helped me out thereafter.
But you had proof, right?
Oh, yeah.
And now, at what point was this person who was working for you, the thief, notified? And did you ever accost her? Did you ever have words with her? What happened with that?
I didn't have words with her. I basically ran out of my house when I felt something was wrong. And I ran to my niece's house, and she helped me as far as getting me to Yukon Health Center, just to verify everything was okay with me as far as my...
Did you call the agency and tell them?
I called the agency, and the agency, I explained the whole situation to her, and she denied that the person was a felon. She also said that I was trying to blackmail her, which I wasn't blackmailing her. I was just saying, hey, this is what happened. And she refused to deal with anybody thereafter, and so with the police as well, too.
So is the agency under investigation for their failure to...
Their failure, yes.
So what's going to happen to them? Do you have any idea?
Basically, unfortunately, she got her hands slapped. And what happened was that background checks weren't really required at that point in time. And so what happened was, because of what had happened to me, I was able to work with the Consumer Protection Agency, which didn't really protect consumers, but I was able to get something passed over there in a law that requires them now to have a background check. Otherwise, they can have their license revoked, or they can also
Well, that's
have a
great.
penalty.
So that's a new rule or regulation in the whole state?
Yes.
In the whole state of Connecticut. So you were responsible for doing that. That's terrific. So something good came of it. Have you recouped all of the losses?
No.
So what have you
Not
not
at all,
recouped?
because she doesn't have any money, so I haven't even been able to recoup anything at all, other than the $4,000 from my bank.
Well, the court can still, perhaps in their orders, make her pay restitution. It might take a while.
They may, however, the statute of limitations is another factor in it. So
4 years now, right? Yeah.
So
overall, how much have you lost?
I
You
would
said
say
around 25,000.
25,000, yeah. But there were other things as well too, because she took out for a down payment as far as her the apartment that she was renting, and all these other things. So that all adds up, pretty much so.
So this is a really unbelievable example of where you put your faith in this agency. You figure this is an agency that hires out competent caretakers for 24 hours.
And based on
she
the
was
fact
living in your house.
Yeah.
She was sleeping in your house
yes,
for all that
exactly.
time.
And she took all sorts of things. She took my dishes, she took my silverware, she took my rugs, and everything else like that.
Could you get restitution from do you pay the agency directly?
Yes.
Why don't you get them to pay you back?
They won't.
Can you get someone to help you with that?
Statute of limitations at this point.
Even on that? Mm-hmm. Wow. So this is really an object lesson, and it almost makes it very, very hard, because we rely on these agencies and we think that there are rules about them being insured, and they're hiring only the most qualified people that have the experience and the credentials. So this is a terrible situation.
Eye-opening.
Yeah.
It is. And again, as you said, Regina, you are a person of education, you have expertise in this field, and yet it still happened to you because the cogs of the system didn't work. That agency was totally irresponsible.
And one of the other things was that, no one would listen to me, so I kept going to different agencies. And finally, I worked with Commissioner Amy Porter, and she was able to, she's the commissioner of aging and disability, and she was able to help me navigate through different agencies to help me get something, or hopefully getting some restitution, but nothing really happened with that. What happened, though, the good part of it was that AARP asked me to do different types of videos and things of that nature, and to testify regarding the same kind of situation that I was in. Because nobody really comes forward when they have an event like that happen. They don't come forward. Seniors are embarrassed. They're just afraid, and they don't want nobody to know about what had happened to them.
It's not just seniors. Anybody would feel, oh my God, I let myself get scammed.
Right.
But this clearly was not your fault at all. You relied on your surgeon, you relied on the agency, and they were supposed to help you, and they didn't.
Right.
And so let's turn, so Joyce, take that as a jumping off point to tell us about other consumer scams and frauds that exist. Tell us about some of them.
I had somebody who was paying someone to do their roof. So she did the right thing. She did half the right thing. They had them write up a contract. They wrote up a contract, and she gave them the money.
Is this also for a healthcare worker?
No, this is a scam, total scam.
Oh, this is a total scam.
So anyway, he came back and he said to her, it's more than I thought. He changed the contract. No, she only paid him half. But he changed the contract, and as a result of that, he would not finish the job unless she agreed to pay. So that's when I put her in touch with the Attorney General's office. And because they're phenomenal, they will help you. They'll absolutely will help you. They'll assign an attorney to your case. So that's what's really wonderful.
So tell
about
us,
that.
Joyce, some of the other types of scams that the seniors are prey to?
Well, there's financial exploitation constantly. and
Give
that-
us an example of that.
Somebody living with their adult child, and the senior was having her EBT card direct deposit, and the daughter was supposed to be paying the rent with that. Come to find out, the daughter didn't. So it got very horrible for the mother. I mean, she was under a lot of pressure. The daughter was an alcoholic and was married, and finally she kicked her out of the house. And I guess this woman was only allowed to eat when the significant other wasn't there. She had to be out of the kitchen by 4:30 in the afternoon, go up to her room, and then finally she said, I've had it, because they heard her make a call to the Women's Center. And they were telling her what to do, and he heard the call. He said, that's it. I'm giving you 30 minutes to get out of the house. You pack a bag, you're going to the shelter. And that's where she went until I worked with the senior center, and I worked endlessly because she was just could not believe
So she
that
had to leave her own home
She
because
had to leave
her
her own
daughter's
home.
boyfriend told her to leave. That's
Yes.
unbelievable.
And she said, to this day, she's very threatened by him. He has a terrible temper, and so that's what happens. So they give in and then they leave. And so she's left with all the bills.
So we have cases of children
Oh,
who you
absolutely.
think are going to be there to help you, stealing your money, taking your Social Security checks, using that. Also, another thing is getting you to sign over
Yes.
power of attorney, getting you to sign papers,
Yes.
getting you to sign deeds. Give me a half interest so I can own this house with you, et cetera, et cetera. All right, give me some other examples. What about one of the things we talk about? Grandparents often get scammed. What does that look like?
Well, what happens is they'll get a call and they'll say, hi, Grandma, this is Susie. And it's a very muffled voice. And you say, oh, Susie, are you okay? No, I'm in trouble. And where are you? I'm going to go to jail unless you send over X amount of dollars. You have to do a wire transfer. At that point, they need to hang up because they know Susie is at school. She's not in another country where they say she is. But they don't always do that. There are so many of them that fear. This is my grandchild. I don't want them in prison, especially in another country. And so they pay the ransom, if you will. And once that's paid, it's really hard. You can't get it back.
It's impossible to find these people. They change their names, they change their
And
financial.
they're overseas.
Yeah.
And they really are. But I see so much abuse with, I had one, and just like you had said, they're afraid. The senior is afraid. Her grandson lived with her, and he was on drugs. So he would come home at night, and she'd be asleep. And he would wake her up by pulling her by the hair on her head until she got up and gave her whatever she had. And it was awful. She was so terrified of him, so much so that, again, I worked with her with the Women's Center, and
You're talking about Safe Futures
Safe
now.
Futures, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I remember it as that, but yes, it
Yes.
is Safe Futures.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were wonderful. They were going to send a car for her, and then I called them too, begging them to pick her up. So what happened was she couldn't do it. She was afraid. So what she did was she called the police, and she told the police what happened. So what the police wanted to do, he interviewed the both of them together. And he said, when does this happen? Well, it happens when he comes home and he is, hyped up on drugs. So he says to the son, the grandson, you go out during the day. You can't come back until 9 o'clock at night when you know she's sleeping. And you just avoid him. Well, what does that do? Nothing.
yeah.
Doesn't do anything.
So that's when it continued, and I said, is there a relative that you could contact, that you could go with them, because she didn't want any part with Safe Futures. So no matter how you try to reach out to help them, they're afraid. They are totally afraid of what's going to
and
happen.
then I think one of the other interesting ones that I've read about a lot is, you called it the romance fraud, because so many of our seniors are isolated and lonely, and some of them are sitting on they have access to the internet,
Yes.
and they're getting in touch with people that are, quote, falling in love with them. Talk
Yes.
about that for
I
a minute.
actually had one like that, and
Yeah.
it was so horrible. And the internet's a great thing until it's not. And Facebook, for one. And this woman, she's very lonely, she started a conversation with somebody on Facebook, and she thought she found her ever after. Her husband was deceased, and she wanted to start all over. And so after a few phone calls or messages, I think they were messages, he convinced her to send him money. And then he was going to pay her back, and she had to put it into her bank account. So obviously, those checks bounced.
Right.
And after several times, she ended up going through her savings. Didn't realize, and even then didn't realize what was happening until she went to the bank. And the bank told her, we can no longer, at first, you've been a long customer. Yes, we'll try to help you. But then it reached the next level, and they said, even though you're a victim, you're not, because you agreed to turn this money
How much
over.
money did she wind up giving him?
$40,000. And so now she went to the police, and the police told her, because it happened overseas and through the internet, now you're talking maybe the FBI is going to get involved. And the worst part about this was she was so terrified her children were going to find out. I thought she was going to have a stroke over this whole thing. And now whether or not she contacted her children, I kept encouraging her to do that it would be like a weight lifted off of her shoulders. Yes, they were going to be upset, but hopefully.
Well, did she need help at that point? Was the $40,000 like all she had in the
That was
bank?
all she had.
Yeah.
And again, she's the one that gave it away, so that put a different spin on it. So
those are just some examples, and then we took identity theft. So this person that scammed you basically took over your identity, used all your cards, all your bank information.
Pretty much fraud. Basically, going in there, having my social security number, that was an important thing. And she went about getting an account online with that number and being able to buy all sorts of different
So
things.
a very important thing, if you do nothing else, never online or even in person give out your social security number unless you're 100% sure it's a valid agency or person that you're dealing with, right? Never put your social security. That's what they want. That's the your phone. I think they can put your name on there, your email, but your social security number, never.
Yeah.
Never.
Did you get a new one, Reggie? Did they give you a new social security number?
No, they
I know it's
didn't.
very hard to get one.
Basically, I kept mine, but they gave me a second level of security.
Okay.
So they don't know. I only know what the second level of security is.
Okay. Because lots of identities, things when you're buying something or doing something online, they want the last 4 digits of your social security number too. But again, don't do that unless you know it's a really legitimate thing.
Secure.
Very important.
do you know that the IRS will give you a second level of security as well? And a lot of people don't know that until it happens to you. So it's really awful, but yes, that does happen all the time.
So this is not just so huge. So it really entails billions of dollars that people are losing to these scams
Absolutely.
and things. So
Absolutely.
now let's turn to Jill, because your expertise, yours as the Senior Medicare Patrol, SMP. Tell us about that. I didn't realize that there's so much fraud in Medicare that seniors, those of us who use Medicare, can actually do something about. I always thought it was just the physicians that scam you and overcharge and all that, but you can help with that.
Absolutely. So as a Senior Medicare Patrol, what we do is we want to help people prevent, detect, and report. Basically, the most important thing is to look at your Medicare summary notices. If you're on original Medicare, if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, it's called an explanation of benefits.
EOB.
EOB, yep,
explanation of benefits.
MSN or EOB, and you want to make sure that everything on there is things that you've actually had done. The biggest part we find is durable medical equipment. Big
So
thing.
explain what that is.
Durable medical equipment is something that can have repeated use, or things that are mailed to your home, such as glucose monitors, anything like that, walkers. There's big scams right now with catheters going around the country. And
So
SM
how do they do that? They order one on your account, but you don't get it?
But
it
you don't
shows
get
up
it.
on your
Correct.
bill.
Yep. So I did have a client that on their Medicare summary notice, it had 9 charges for catheter kits. It was over $12,000 for Medicare that they paid out. You would think Medicare would have caught it. I don't know why they didn't catch it. She reported it, so we did the
Okay.
process to get it
But
to Medicare.
sometimes when you get your EOB or your Medicare
Mm-hmm.
statement, you see that you have a charge, that Medicare
Some
pays out
people,
so much,
yes.
and you might have a leftover. charge.
Leftover deductible, or
Yeah.
right.
Would you have that with this durable equipment?
It depends on your Medicare coverage.
Okay.
So some people have a secondary insurance that will pick it up, or they have a state benefit that will
Right.
pick it up. So not necessarily means that you're going to have a copay. I think if someone does have a copay, they notice it sooner.
Okay, so a lot of times, though, if you don't have a copay, that was the
You
word
don't
I was
really-
looking
yeah.
for, you might say, well, it doesn't
I don't owe
bother me,
anything.
what do I care? But it
Right,
does
yeah.
because it
Yeah.
hurts the whole system.
Right. So they estimate Medicare loses $60 billion a year
Wow.
in Medicare fraud.
So what other kind of frauds are there?
So getting excessive tests at your doctor's office.
Right, so you might actually get those tests, or the doctor just puts them on the chart?
Correct. Either or. You might
Either
actually
way.
get the test. It might not be something that is needed. I'm not saying doctors are fraud or anything like that, but you never know with testing. The other thing, another big one was COVID test kits back in 2020. That was a big one. And
Well,
then
they were free back then.
they were free for a point, and then Medicare decided they weren't going to pay for them anymore.
Okay.
All these companies had all these COVID test kits, so they were just mass mailing them out, getting people's Medicare number. I had clients that were like, I have 50 kits. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, and Medicare did get billed for them. So it's very important that these get reported, because Medicare, you have premiums for Medicare. Typically, Part B premium is $185 right now. That's what causes it to go up. It's one thing, because we want to keep the Medicare in place, but fraud makes those numbers go up.
Okay, what other kinds of Medicare fraud are there?
So we did durable medical equipment, we did catheter kits. There's so many. A lot of them have to go around with, and Joyce, please feel free to jump in. Just don't give your number out. And make sure you're not giving your number out. COVID test kits, I'm sorry.
Genetic testing.
Genetic testing is a big one.
So tell us about that.
So genetic testing, someone will call you and they will talk about, your doctor sent me this information. They said that you're going to get genetic testing. Maybe you're a cancer patient, or maybe you don't have any diagnosis.
Right.
Unfortunately, my uncle actually fell for this one. That you verify your information back and forth, and your doctor never ordered the test kit. They send you the test kit, and it says mail back, and they're going to bill Medicare for that kit. That was not necessary at all.
And you never ordered it. You didn't,
Correct.
You didn't
Yeah.
ask for that.
Yeah. A lot of the Medicare fraud I see is equipment that is not received or received that you did not order. Okay. The other thing I encourage people to look at is if they get a bill from a doctor's office, call the doctor's office first. They could have improper coding. It could be something as simple as that, where
Right.
it's not
'Cause
fraud.
every diagnosis needs a specific code in order to be.
Correct. And sometimes, we're all human. We make mistakes.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is you probably don't know, percentage of cooperation of seniors who actually do this, who actually take a serious look at their bills and at their state Medicare or EOB statements?
I don't know percentage, but I do go to senior centers, senior housing, and I give presentations, and people always say they're going to share the information, so I hope they do. Because
I think we will, because I'm on Medicare, and I think I was unaware of the role that seniors ourselves can play in ferreting out this fraud.
Right.
Well, basically, seniors are afraid or embarrassed to tell anybody about what they've done or what they've lost. Pretty much like if it was a violent kind of a incident, you're willing to tell somebody, and everybody's going to say, "Oh, that's too bad, that's terrible." But if you told them that somebody, scammed you, and it's more or less like, how could you be so stupid to be
Yeah.
able to fall for something like that? And so there's a lot of that kind of activity going on as well too.
And people shouldn't feel stupid because the scammers have a way of making you feel very comfortable.
Yes.
Some can be angry, but the ones that are really good, they make you feel comfortable. They
Right.
get that information. They get your Social Security card number. They get your Medicare number, which are two separate numbers. Years ago, they were
Yeah.
the same. So it's
well,
important to
Regina's
know.
experience was such a personal and direct one where there was no question you were relying on this person. She came from this so-called reputable agency, and there was nothing to think about. This woman was helping you, and of course you were letting her help you with your finances and all of that.
Well, I didn't let her with my finances. She just went to my
She went through your
drawer where I
papers.
had my paperwork.
But wouldn't you have allowed her to go shopping for you, or give her some money to go shopping?
I
or-
did let her take the cards just to
Yes,
go get
yeah,
food.
exactly.
But, I trusted
You were
her.
trusting.
Well, of course,
So-
that's understandable that you would do that. But a lot of these scams, like what Joyce was talking about and Jill, come through us all being on that internet, on the web.
Absolutely.
Right? And we're getting involved with people we don't know, in agencies we don't know anything about, and we're being scammed into these things, thinking that it's okay. And we're all subject to that. I don't know how many times I've gotten you get this thing, oh, you got malware, oh, you got a bad connection. You've got to make sure that your computer is safe from poisonous malware and stuff, right? We're all subject to that.
Probably the key thing with that is that it jumps up on you and says, call your person, and they'll give you a number, your technical support.
Yeah, do not call that
You
number.
don't call that number, and there's no technical support. You just turn your computer
That's a
off.
scam. Turn it off. Shut your Wi-Fi. But that takes time to learn that. The first time you see that, somebody's going to
You
say, "Oh my
panic.
God," and they're going to make that call.
Right.
And that call is going to be a scammer, and they're going to try to get all your information. So this is a tough world. It's not just
Sure is.
seniors are huge targets, but all of us, everyone is.
Well, and look at all the data breaches that we're getting letters in the mail from hospitals that you've been compromised. I mean, I get it for me and my children, my husband. So, I mean, those happen all the time.
And look what's how we don't want to necessarily get political, but look what's happening on the national level where they're getting access to all our information.
When you think about it, I went to a seminar once with the gentleman, Run as Fast as You Can, that the story was written about him. I forgot his name, but anyway, he just impersonated all these different people. So he spoke. He now works for the FBI. And he spoke to the group and said, "You know the easiest way for a scammer to get you when you write a check? Think about what's on that check. You have your routing number, you have your account number, you have your name, you have your address, and you have your telephone number. So it's like, how do you pay? Do you do direct withdrawal? You do that, and they get compromised. So I mean,
You can't win.
Yeah, but what about when you go to a restaurant and you hand the waiter your credit card? They've got
They can make
Right.
copies.
they've
I
got
know.
your
Yeah, that's true.
expiration date, your
Yeah.
code, your 3-digit code.
Yeah,
They
even
can
if you
copy it.
even if you
But,
wait.
but I think the credit card companies have excellent fraud prevention. I know
They've
I've
gotten
gotten
better.
calls from my credit card company when they saw some purchase that I made that they were questioning because of my overall purchase history. They question that. They've got thousands and thousands of people working for Visa and MasterCard, ferreting out fraud. I feel safe with them. Then they send you a new card if there's any problem with your old card.
Right.
That you don't necessarily, not going to lose everything because that can be taken care of. Did you have any of that with your credit cards when she charged things on it? Were you able to go back and undo some of those
I was
charges?
able to undo some of it. I had Discover card, and they were very
Right.
helpful as far as that was concerned. The other cards, nobody was really. It was more or less like, how do we know that you didn't really buy it for yourself? Is the question, and I would have to prove that they took
Right,
the
it was
money.
your
So
card
that would
used.
be very difficult.
Yeah,
but
very hard.
there's another scam that's out there that people are noticing these days is like the sweepstakes one, where you get a call, you've just won the Jamaican lottery, you know,
okay.
kind of thing. And it's like, okay, if you send $1,000 to me,
We
we'll,
need
we'll
your
take
bank
care
account,
of your
right?
tax.
We gotta
Yeah,
put it
and
in
you
your-
need all the information, and there it goes. you know, kind
Okay.
of thing. But you also know that you didn't, you know, you ask the person, did you really take a ticket for the sweepstakes? And normally the person doesn't.
Right. They
No,
just get excited.
that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, because all they want is to get your information in the end, your financial information. So, what about things like Venmo and PayPal? Are those safe for seniors to use?
I'm not sure about the Venmo. I'm not sure how safe that is. I think PayPal is
Has
the
security
safer one.
measures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
If you have a
secure.
problem with PayPal, you can contact them. For
So,
Venmo,
in
I'm
some ways, if you have that and access to a computer, that might be better than using your credit card.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
The other thing you could do with your credit cards or anything is to put them, freeze them.
Yes.
Yep. You
And
can.
if you needed to take more money out of your accounts or buy something, let's say like Macy's, okay, you could freeze your account with Macy's, and then when you want to buy something, you can unfreeze it and then freeze it back
How do you
again.
do that? Do people? You just contact phone calls?
The credit card?
You call you know, on your
And
credit
you
card
say I
would be
want
a
to
phone
freeze
number
it.
there.
You're not really closing the account. You're just freezing
Because you're
it.
just freezing it.
Oh, I didn't even know you could do that. So that's just something to learn.
And
Okay.
get the free credit report too.
That's what I was going
Right.
to say.
Yeah, you can
All right, that's
request
important. Talk about that. Everybody should get the credit report. Will have a history of all of-
everything, everything you've done, and you really have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that there isn't anything in there that shouldn't be there. You just
Correct.
want to make sure all of it is yours and not somebody else's.
And they go way back. At
They do.
every
They go
credit
way
card
back.
you've ever had, and they also give you your credit rating.
Right, they give you your
Mhm.
credit
Right.
scores, everything.
And that's what Equifax and there's several.
TransUnion.
An experience.
Experian, right.
Okay.
And one of the other things I suggest is people change their PIN numbers regularly. So that's another way of protecting yourself.
Not you should change your
Passwords.
Passwords.
Passwords,
and
PIN
your
numbers on the
IDs,
cards.
your password
Yes.
numbers very frequently.
Yeah.
And
I
not
know.
share them with anybody.
Right.
Right. So I have a
Keep them in a safe spot.
I have a password book that's all scratched out to change. And then I think, well, what if someone steals my book?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
nothing is
We
any
can't remember
safe.
them all.
Is anything safe? I don't know. But I need that book because I changed my password. So you should. That's important to keep changing
Yes,
them
it
so
is.
they can't get them. Well, let's turn to some of the. We have a series of slides that will help us kind of summarize some of the things we were talking about or add some new information. Okay, scams, fraud, and financial exploitation of seniors. That's our title. And what do we have? Senior Resources, 50 years. Most of these, we're all working for Senior Resources here. Next, we wanted to show Joyce. Yeah, I like that picture of you, Joyce, and Jill, and Regina. Great. All right, and then SMP, again, Jill, you talked about that. Take charge. We can go on. Next. All right, talk just a second about that.
So this is the SMP mission to empower and assist Medicare beneficiaries, families, and caregivers to prevent, detect, and report healthcare fraud, errors, and abuse.
Right. And
These
Tell
are just some tips. Treat your Medicare card like a credit card. Watch out for identity theft. If you're in the grocery store, don't leave your purse unattended. I got a great tip from, I was doing an outreach event one day, and the lady said that they actually take their purse and they use the buckles, and they clip their purse in the buckles. So if someone tries to grab your purse, they're taking the whole cart with them, which I thought was a great little thing. Be cautious of free medical services or supplies. Don't give out your Medicare number except to your doctor or other Medicare provider, and try not to carry it with you.
okay, next slide. All right, just give us a little bit about
Yep.
this. That's the summary notice.
This is a Medicare summary notice. And basically, to check your summary notice, you want to check the date of service, make sure you had an appointment that day, check your provider, check to see if you had the services that they billed you for, the maximum billed amount. The only time I caution people is if they're in the hospital, to really look at it carefully, extra carefully, because you don't always know the doctors that are coming in and out.
And if you see something that doesn't look right, you call your doctor first?
You can call your doctor first, make sure everything's correct on their end, and then if they're not helping you, you call Senior Medicare Patrol and we'll be happy to
Medicare
help you.
Patrol. Okay, next slide. Let's go on. All right, what else? What
So
is
this-
my healthcare tracker?
So these are trackers that we have some in the office. Basically, it's like a journal to keep track of what you went to the doctor for, test results, anything like that. And you compare it to review your Medicare summary notices. Some people prefer to use their MyChart account where it has all that information in it as well. This is the 1-800 number for Connecticut SMP, 1-800-994-9422 if you have any questions.
Okay.
This is about pharmacy and drug protection.
So how does that work, pharmacy fraud? What is that?
So it occurs when a prescription is the pharmacy pays for a prescription that you did not pick up or a prescription that you did not receive.
Oh.
Okay, so it has to do with the pharmacy. They're providing you with or expired prescriptions, automatically refilling prescription you don't need. I know we all get those reminders. Providing you with less medication that you're prescribed. So let's say you were supposed to get a 90-day supply and they only gave you 30-day supply. There could be a reason. Sometimes they're out of medications and they'll give you a note. And then again, looking out for free or discount prescription drugs. Just use that with caution.
Okay. And the number on the screen, we already have 800-994-9422.
Yep.
And I think we mentioned a little bit about
We did.
Medicare fraud.
This is about the DNA genetic testing, which we discussed. Yep. Ambulance coverage, this is a good one. To have Medicare pay for ambulance coverage, the transportation must be medically necessary. Any other means of transportation cannot be contained. The destination is the nearest appropriate facility. They're not just going to take anyone to the ambulance. If it's an emergency, yes. But if you are someone that needs help mobility-wise, there has to be a reason for the ambulance to take
So
you for
how
a
will they
ride.
scam you? How will they do? They'll send an ambulance when it's
You'll
not
get
needed?
it.
Or you
What?
just
How
get a
those?
bill?
You'll get a bill. You'll get a bill. They might say Medicare is not paying for this because you didn't meet these qualifications. Okay, so it's
you
very
get
important
a bill
to check.
for an ambulance service that you weren't. It wasn't warranted for your care.
Correct. They're saying that Medicare is refusing
And
to pay
who
for
started
it.
that scam? Who initiated that scam?
It could just be a billing error. It could be that the client did not go through Medicare to get more information first to see what their coverage was. But it's very important to make sure that if you're going to take an ambulance to the hospital, get some service done, that it is getting covered because ambulance bills are very high.
The problem is you're in an emergency situation.
That's different.
How are you going to figure out what
Right.
your
Yeah.
rights
If you
are at
ever
that
have an
point?
emergency situation, you get a bill, you definitely want to call Senior Medicare Patrol.
That's another point
Mm-hmm.
that I want you all to make. When you go to the hospital, when you go to the doctor, especially as a senior, even when you have people come into the home,
Mm-hmm.
you should always have an ombudsman, somebody there, a family member, a friend, a neighbor to help you. You should never, ever be alone. What do you think about I know it's hard to do. so
Some
there are
people don't
that are
have
alone.
anybody to
Yeah.
What
help
are your
them.
thoughts on that?
Well, like Jill said, it's hard because people don't always have somebody to help them out. And it really, and it's sad, and this is where things can happen as a result of it. They can get
Correct.
scammed.
When you were going through what was happening to you, Regina, did you have family, neighbors, friends that were checking in on you, visiting you while you
After
had...
it all happened, my sister got involved a little more so in it. But prior to it, they weren't aware of anything at all. They
You
thought
were
everything was
basically
fine.
alone with this person?
Yes.
You didn't have people coming in, checking
Nope.
things out,
Nope.
asking you, how is this person doing?
Nope,
No.
not at all. They were supposed to, but they never did.
But they didn't. So I think that's very important. Everybody should, when you see a doctor, and if you're sick, if you're nervous, if you're worried about what your diagnosis is going to be, you should never, ever be alone if you can
If
help
you
it.
can get somebody, absolutely. I
Very,
go with
very
my dad to
important
his
to have
appointments.
somebody with you at
It's
all.
hard. I mean, we have the National Family Caregivers Program where if you have a caregiver, they can accompany you, and that's always important to the doctor's appointment.
I don't think people realize how important that is.
Absolutely.
You should never go to the hospital alone. If you can, again,
If you
can.
can.
help it.
If you can.
That's a whole,
Yeah.
that's where
Okay.
people fall through the cracks, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Oh, here we go. So these are some of the numbers that are very important. Social Security. This is important. In our Attorney General in Connecticut, William Tong, is fantastic, and just set up the Connecticut Elder Justice Hotline, 860-808-5555. He just set that up last year, I believe.
was about a
the
year
last
ago.
couple of
Yep.
years, which is wonderful. Connecticut also has Social Services Department, Medicare, and of course, if you want to just get started on getting information, Senior Resources right here, 860-887-3561 is very good. And then if you're scammed, like Regina was, the Federal Trade Commission should set up an account for you and do investigation. Did they investigate on your case?
At that time they didn't, but now they do.
Now they do.
Because you need to have some trail for what has occurred to you, with where your money went away and such like that. So they at least have a case started with you, and you should report to the police department, because they in turn will have a case on file for you as well too. When you take it to court or anything else, at least you have somebody that's reliable.
Right.
To be
So
able
where
to,
is this person now who scammed you? Where is she now?
she is on. She's able to be around, but she's going to be behind bars soon.
Okay, so she is out on bail,
Bail, out on
probably,
bail.
right? And hopefully she will be. What type of sentence are they talking about?
They're talking about 3 years behind
Really?
bars, but basically, they negotiate it. So hopefully she'll get at least 1 or 2 years.
Now, you
out
said
of it.
she was a felon in prior instances. Do you know what those were? Were those
Oh,
also
yes.
taking advantage of
Well,
older
not
people?
taking advantage of people per se, as much as she went with a gang and beat somebody up, and then went to another town and continued beating up that person.
Ugh.
So violent. Was
violent.
she ever physically abusive to you?
No, she wasn't at all.
So you thought she was...
I thought she
treating
was
you-
fine because, like, I had in one of my bedrooms, my mother used to collect Blessed Mother statues, and so we had them all out there. And so every morning she would sing religious hymns. So you couldn't tell, oh, nice lady, she's singing religious hymns, So
Okay. I wonder if that was a scam, too.
that was, well, I don't think, that I don't know
You
about
don't
what
know,
religious
yeah.
beliefs are and such, but
Okay, let's look at the rest of the slides. Again,
Okay.
what is the Fraud Watch Network,
It-
Joyce?
it is part of the AARP organization.
Oh, is
I
it?
became a member of it because of all that had occurred to me. And we pretty much go out and speak to other people as far as making presentations. We ourselves are not experts, but we are trained pretty well by law enforcement and other folks
Okay.
as far as to be able to spy a scam.
Okay, so I said Joyce, but I meant Regina. Okay, great. And then again, what are
The
the
trends.
trends? Let's go forward.
Good.
All right,
Okay,
Joyce.
these are examples
And you.
that you have over there. Probably the ones, the grandparent one is a tough one. If you have a grandparent or any family member, what you should be doing is having a passcode. Something funny like, oh, Rover isn't here anymore. And they'll, so you'll know that it's, somebody will ask you a
Right,
question
right.
about that. Then you have the romance scams. We talked about that, where a person is lonely and so forth, and they fall for it. Travel scams, where you sign up for a trip, you send the money in, but it's really not a travel agency, so they take the money away from you. As far as other things that are out there, I mentioned about the lottery. Now, probably more so than anything is the charity scams.
Yes.
With everybody now, all the fires and everything else happening around, the country, people are they're going to, oh, I feel bad, they put money into a charity, but they haven't checked them out to see whether they
So
really
there are
exist or not.
fraudulent groups
Oh, yeah.
collecting money for these great charities, and they're not going to who you think they're
Correct,
going to.
correct.
That's unbelievable.
I think government imposter scams is a good one to bring up, because the government is not going to contact you.
Yes.
You have to initiate to contact the government. Medicare's not going to call you, the
Right.
IRS.
So when you get
yeah.
an email from Medicare, you get a lot of emails, and sometimes the emails will have it'll look like it's coming from that. But you know what you should look at? The email address it comes
Exactly.
from.
Absolutely.
Instead of saying Medicare.com, it will say gobbledygobbledygobbledygook.com,
Yep.
right? And you can tell a lot from that.
And
Or the
Social
spelling.
Security will never
Right.
call you. And that is something that people always fall for.
They do.
They really
the
do.
IRS, Social
Or the
The
Security.
IRS,
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
They don't call.
Okay, let's go on. Next slide.
Okay, this one tells you the side which says financial exploitation, falsifying records, they do that to you. The examples for fraud are all scams. Okay, so there's a difference between those two. So, partly, like in my case, it was financial exploitation. For other people, like the romance scams and so forth, those are on the fraud side.
Right. So
So-
we talked about that. Your children force you to sign power of attorney
Correct.
or turn the house over to them,
Okay.
deny you access to your own assets, or falsify records for you, steal your funds. Yeah, that's important. Okay, let's go
Let's-
on.
One of the things to know about is the younger people who lose money to fraud more often. Okay, they're more often, but the older people are the ones that have much more to lose.
Well, of course,
So,
sure.
okay,
Go on.
and the next slide. Okay, as you mentioned before, Jill, as far as like the imposters, Social Security, IRS, Medicare, FTC, US
Yeah.
Postal, a lot of these will, let's say like Amazon, they'll spell Amazon incorrectly, AMAZZON. You know, so that you got to keep
Yeah.
looking to see that you have everything
So if you
correct.
get an email from any one of these businesses, organizations, do not respond to it. Delete
Correct.
it or
Right.
call it spam or block it or whatever.
And what you should be doing, if you do it, you need to know, call the number that you know is a true number.
True number.
Right.
Well, that's very hard because sometimes when you go online and you say customer service number for this, there will be a different number
Yes.
and they are not the exact number
Correct.
you want, and that they're scamming you too.
Companies they'll buy numbers
very
that are
hard.
close to the real numbers.
Yeah, so be very careful of all of that. All right, go on.
And as what Jill said, you know, the government and businesses do not contact you out of the blue about a problem. Okay, and again, stressing no, don't make any payments or share any sensitive information.
Right.
Okay, the next slide.
Next slide.
Okay, this is, we
talked
talked
about
about the
that.
sweepstakes one. If you don't recall entering, or if they ask you for money, you know that it's not true and it's a scam.
Wow.
The next one. Okay. These are the romance scams. Pretty much those words on Plenty of Fish and Match and so forth. They're online dating services. And a lot of people get scammed for that.
Okay.
Okay. Identity theft and identity fraud. We spoke about it. Freeze your credit cards. Use unique, passwords. You do the annual credit check as far as mitigation is concerned, and identifytheft.gov is another one to look at.
Okay.
Okay, gift cards. Why people will ask for gift cards is because they're hard to trace. They're easy to like multiple cards and such like that. So I could say, okay, I'll pay you, but I'll pay you 4 $25 cards. You know, kind of a thing like that. So keep going there. Okay, another one.
Again, yeah, we talked about this. Yeah.
Ether is considered, that's the term that they gave for when you have heightened emotions and you're not logically thinking, okay? Fear, excitement, and new love. It's like, okay, you only have 2 more of these things on, available. If you don't buy now, you're not going to get them.
Right,
So
right.
they get you all going with your emotions and such. Next one. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, violent crimes, people say, they're scary for them and they show empathy. Financial crimes, they consider you it's your fault, you're the idiot, you should have known better. Next one. The change is you have to take from I can't believe I fell for this and how could I be so stupid? Next slide. You want to instead say, I can't believe you got duped. How could you fall for that? Instead of those, you want to say, it's not your fault, and scammers are good at what they do. They're the criminals.
Yes.
Okay, so people don't treat people like that when they're
Right. So how many senior scams are there that are not getting reported because people are
Exactly.
afraid?
I'm sure a lot.
They're afraid, yeah, and they're embarrassed, more so embarrassed, which is how I got to get more into this is because I'm willing to talk about it. I have nothing to hide. And other people, they're too embarrassed and they don't want to come up and say anything.
Right. Okay,
Okay.
move on.
What they're saying is if we do follow everything, there'll be more reporting of these. Family relationships will be better, okay, because the wealth will be protected. Police take it seriously. In my case, they didn't. And prosecutors take more cases.
Well, they did. It took years to take your case seriously.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
next slide. Next slide. And here's some prevention strategies. Probably the one I really want to stress is the charities one right now, charitynavigator.org or give.org. Really do your research at those locations to see what is really out there and what's really a charity that you could devote to. You know, and if they say anything, you develop a refusal script. And I tell everybody, just say no.
Right.
That's all you need to say, no. And also the screening phone calls, which you can do as far as that's concerned. If you don't recognize that phone number, let it go to voicemail.
Let it go to voicemail, exactly. People are so
Absolutely.
anxious to answer that phone that you don't have to. If you and you know, everybody has their contacts, so if it's a family member or someone you know, of course.
Right.
But otherwise, just let it go to voicemail and see what happens.
And this, I think, is very important as far as, like, you know, protect your personal information, but monitor your bills and financial accounts. From my experience, what I've done is every morning I go and look and see all my savings accounts, all my credit cards and everything else, what has been charged, you know, and if it wasn't me, then I contact them.
You are have a heightened sensitivity to it. The rest of us are not doing that every day. But at least do it when you get, at least a lot of people are paying bills automatically, so it's easy.
Right.
Well, don't do that. Pay it. You can still pay it online every month without having to write that check out in the mail. But you can still review the bill first and then pay it online.
Right.
But there's a lot of automatic payments when you're not looking.
You go to the next one.
All right.
Next one. Okay, very much important that you protect your Social Security number and personal information. As we said already, monitor your bills, financial accounts. Do your homework before investing. You know, everybody's going to say, oh, invest in this. You're going to make an awful lot of money if you invest in this. You know, really check it out with smartcheck.gov.
Right.
And again, look over your credit reports, as we mentioned before. In the next slide. Again, we talked about personal IDs and PINs. One thing is, be sure you change them. You know, some people keep the same one and they do it for every account that they have, so you should be changing it.
Right.
Protect your mail. There's a website over there you could do that, or a phone number to call.
Does that do not call registry work? I've tried it and it doesn't seem to work.
Most times it works.
Really?
But there's a good percentage of it that doesn't work.
You'll still get scammer calls, unfortunately.
Right, right. And again, verify the charities that
Right.
you want to donate to. Go ahead. Okay, this again too is like for cybersecurity, they say, and this is repetitive what we've enforcing what we said. Monitor your accounts online, secure your passwords, protect your computer. Okay, so that people don't come and take it away from you and have all your information on there, as well as that, you know, your passwords and everything else are taken care of. Control your surfing, okay? Meaning that if you're going out there and you're looking for different things online, that you just, for the heck of it, are going out there for it, you should know that somebody is watching your surfing, your profile on there, so they know what you like, and then they'll, like, you know, come back after you. Again,
Well, how do you control it? Because it's always going to be in the hard drive of your computer what sites you've looked at, even if you erase them. They're still going to be
I think
on
you mean
there.
self-control on what you're looking for,
right,
kind of like.
right. And also too, like when you are surfing, you should be able to take and delete that from on your computer. Go to the settings section, and it'll tell you how to delete some of that
Clear it.
information for you.
Okay. All right. So we've given a lot of information. I just want to end by each of you giving us what your summary is of what's most important. Joyce, we'll start with you.
I think it's very important to keep your information in a safe place. Don't carry a lot of cards with you. Be careful when you make a contract with somebody. Get references before you sign on the dotted line. Don't answer calls that you don't know who they're from. Wait, let them leave you a message, and you decide if you call them back. And I think one of the other things is to register on the do not call list, and hopefully those will be one of the calls that will it'll work. It doesn't work for everyone, like you said, but it does work. Just take some time.
Okay, thank you, Joyce.
You're
Jill?
welcome.
So I would say for Medicare fraud, make sure you check those Medicare summary notices and your explanation of benefits. That's there for a reason. You want to make sure that you had the services. You want to make sure that you did receive the equipment if you needed something, or the test kit. if you you didn't receive it and you got billed for it, you want to report it. So please report it. Keep the Medicare intact, the Medicare system.
Finally, Regina.
My one thing is, and we didn't talk about it, is that you should take pictures of everything in your house.
Okay.
Because when you say you lost it, no one believes it. How can I prove that the rug was there? So they take so you have to do that. Take pictures, take videos. I would say also check backgrounds, double check them. Very important to do that kind of a thing, any references and things of that nature. The girl that was with me, she actually went down to where the post office boxes were for all my neighbors, and she started talking, and they all were like, oh, she's such a nice person. I think we should have her help me out when she's finished with you.
Wow.
So,
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Joyce, Jill, and Regina. These three senior resources people, and also from AARP, have given us valuable information. I hope you follow it. I'm sad that we live in a culture where so much of this fraud and scamming is going on, with seniors as the principal victims of it. But do the best you can to prevent it as much as you can. Take a look at those phone numbers and call agencies that will help you. So stay tuned for more senior resources programs on all the wonderful things that Senior Resources does. See you next time on Talkback. Bye.